So this weekend it's Usyk against Dubois, the rematch. Now, people are getting a bit carried away with Dubois, in my opinion, and here's why I say this. Look at Dubois' past opponents. He boxed Kevin Lerena, who had Dubois on the floor 3 times. Yes, he was injured, and so at least one of those knockdowns, we can say, was a legitimate knockdown. It was a punch on the top of the head. And again, that would blow anybody's equilibrium. So there's no great shame in my book for having to take a knee, because he did get back up, from getting hit around the side, the top of the head. It's exactly what happened to Martin Bakole against Joseph Parker. It's near to the brainstem. It just blows your equilibrium and scrambles your brain. So Kevin Lerena, nonetheless, he is a domestic level fighter. Why do I say that? Because he since boxed Justice Hooney and lost that fight, and then Justice Hooney boxed Fabio Wardley and he lost that fight. So Fabio Wardley, I would say, is just coming out of domestic level, and therefore Dubois had a life and death with essentially a guy who lost to people at domestic level. The next we can look at is Hrgović, and he shipped a ton of punishment against Hrgović, and I'll explain why that's relevant in a second. Hrgović could not miss. He is not the biggest heavyweight puncher, so Dubois was able to wear those shots, as Derek Chisora did against Vitaly Klitschko. That was another fighter coached by Don Charles at the time, so there's a pattern there. So that's Hrgović. Dubois did not beat Hrgović with skill or outclass him. He beat him with heart and by grinding him down. So heart and fitness. Is that gonna beat Usyk? Maybe. I would say, however, that if Hrgović can find you so easily, Usyk is definitely going to be able to find your chin. And I think that that could be a factor. Then the next opponent we'll look at for Dubois is Miller. And Dubois had a life and death against Miller. And again, he beat him by grinding him down and on fitness. Miller had just come off the back of some pretty heavy, let's say, supplement stack. He was using EPO, which the Tour de France riders use. That gives you a massive amount more oxygen carrying capacity, which means that as a big, basically obese guy, you're able to walk people down and keep working, even if you're just throwing arm shots, and with your weight grind guys down. That's how he was winning to that point. He was just bulldozing people with his size because he's so big. And once that EPO was taken away from him, I think he was also using testosterone and maybe some other substance, I'm not sure though. So once that was taken away from him, then put him against Dubois, and Dubois still had a hard time with him. Then we come to Anthony Joshua. All right, so far for me, there is no win on Dubois' record where he's won by looking spectacular. And by spectacular, I mean outclassing someone using slick skill or whatever. It's been heart and fitness, which is still admirable. But again, is it enough for Usyk? We'll see. Because Derek Chisora, I would say, used that to the max. But back to AJ. So Dubois' next and probably most credible win. I have never seen AJ box that badly in my life. I would say that even the 10-fight novice AJ would have boxed better against Dubois that night than we saw on the night. Maybe AJ has changed coaches too many times. In my opinion, he should have stayed with Derek James, the maker of the Charlo brothers. He showed a lovely shape against, was it Jermaine Franklin? Yes, it was a bit of a boring fight, but he boxed beautifully. He held his shape. Anyway, AJ's changed trainer a lot of times and is now with Ben Davidson. Who has Ben Davidson? And I'm not saying he's a bad coach, but who has he taken from grassroots to champion level? He got famous for Billy Joe Saunders and Tyson Fury. Both of those were already schooled before they went to Ben Davidson. There's Lee Wood, but he had already been at the England setup and then I think the Ingle gym. So again, I'm not saying that Ben Davison's not a good coach. I'm just saying, in my book, we don't know yet. He's not taken anybody from grassroots to champion level. So you've got AJ, who switched coaches a lot of times, went to Robert Garcia, was with Tony Sims, looked quite good under Tony Sims, and anyway, and boxes an horrendous fight against Dubois. I mean, walking in against a massive puncher with no setup and just winging in a backhand uppercut with your chin up in the air is, I mean, Shane McGuigan called it from the ringside. That is just a note. They'll teach you that in an amateur boxing class. Everything is set up with the jab. You jab and throw the backhand. You might jab and throw the backhand uppercut, or you jab and come off the lead hand with other shots. But you never just walk in like that. That's a highly risky shot. So he boxed horribly against Dubois, and Dubois caught him with, yes, a good punch, but he stuck his head down and he swung one over the top. For me, yes, you have to give him credit, but it's still not a fight that he won by strategizing like a chess match. And it was just, he put his head down, swung over the top. AJ did something very stupid and got caught. Then we come to the Usyk first match. Well, again, you have to remember he lost against Joe Joyce, who turned out to be not anything too special. This is Dubois. Then he comes to the Usyk first match. That was a low blow. I've looked at the rules. Anything on the hip line, basically anything below the top of the hips, which is the iliac crest, anything below that is a low blow. And that shot was not actually on the cup, but it was a low blow. It was below the hip line, and it would have hit the top of the protector. And if you've ever worn one of those up, it pulls up, and you just saw Usyk's reaction. It was a low blow. As soon as Usyk got back up, he closed the show within minutes and off the lead hand. So look at the facts. Dubois shipped a lot of punishment against Hrgovic. He got found out a lot in terms of giving away the target against Joe Joyce. And AJ, that win for me is not that impressive. You know, I mean, yes, it's a big name. Yes, it would have done Dubois good for his confidence, but AJ boxed horribly. Full credit to Dubois. You know, he deserves all the plaudits he gets for that. But for me, it's just not. I would be interested to see if they boxed again, and if AJ came in on good form, how that would go. I still think Dubois could beat AJ, but I think on that night it was a particularly bad performance. And then you've got the Usyk match, and Usyk, as I say, shut the show basically when he chose. As soon as he realized, wow, you know, this guy's coming for me, and that wasn't good, that was a low blow, this could get ugly. And I think his coach in the corner told him, close the show, shut things down early. It was actually yes, it was a jab, but he screwed his shoulder into it, so it's a bit like shooting off the backhand, and found Dubois' chin instantly. Now, the final factor for me is look at Usyk versus Fury. Fury is one of the most slippery customers there is, as slippery as an eel, very hard to hit. He cheats, in my opinion. I'm saying a lot of stuff, controversial stuff that will upset a lot of people, but he would sit back in the corner, use the ropes to pull. You're not allowed to do that. And then he would pull off one hand and then cuff Usyk around the back of the head. Anyway, the point is, Usyk was able to find Fury a very slippery cat's chin. Not with ease, but he was able to find it, where a lot of other people have really, really struggled. And he hit him, Fury, to the head like many, many times. So he will be able to find Dubois' chin again, of course. The only X factor in this is Dubois' confidence, because the AJ win is a very credible win. It's a big name. And so, yeah, Dubois, if his confidence is high, if his camp has gone so well, if they've managed to plug the gaps on certain other issues I see, then yes, he could have a chance in this fight, more than just a one-punch chance. But the favorite is Usyk, 100%. I think might make a point, might make an example of Dubois and have a look for the first 3 or 4 rounds, and then in rounds 5, 6 to 8 or 9, absolutely put his foot on the gas and drown Dubois by smothering him. He comes forward, he's very active with his hands, he uses feints, he keeps you guessing, and it wears you out. So yeah, I think, and also Usyk's conditioning is like second to none. So I think Usyk will possibly stop Dubois in rounds 7 to 9, let's say 7 to 10, or it will be a clear points decision to Alexander Usyk. So I don't agree with Ade Odalipo that if Dubois lands a one-punch Hail Mary and KOs Usyk, that from that one win and against a very questionable looking AJ, that he gets put up with Lennox Lewis status. Absolutely not. That's not how legacies are formed. They're formed over several years fighting at the top of the division and beating the best of your era, which happens over 3, 4, 5 years at least, not 2 wins.